This part of my walk along the Thames is a mile or so along from the last video, and we're in the parish of Ewen. Well, I start the walk in Somerford and then make my way up the river, taking in the countryside, the meadland, crossing the boundary into the parish of Ewen, which today is Kemble and Ewen, but in the Dark Ages it was just Ewen, and the eastern boundary, the northwest to the north, to the east, to the south of the boundary is the same today as it was then. And these are some of the landmarks. Now, I was going to do a nice voiceover in Old English describing these old names and where you walk to follow the boundary, but it is in Latin rather than Old English, and I would rather not embarrass myself talking a language that I don't know at all. The names, the landmarks are in English, however, in Old English. And in this part of the boundary, on this walk, these are some of them. So we have the Guita Stone, which is on this road here. I haven't yet gone over there to have a look to see if it still exists. My hit rate on spotting old landmark stones, old English landmark stones, is very, very poor. I do intend to go and have a look, but it's 30 miles away. I'm not sure I can justify it, but I do want to have a look to see if it's still there. And it tells us to go along eastward to La Ditchawalla, which is the ditch wall. The La is Latin, but the Ditchawalla is familiar to us today. It should be easily understood. It's another example of how Old English is just very close to modern English. And then it tells us to go down to the Rivulo de Tamyse, which is half Latin, the Rivulo Day. But the Tamyse is the English pronunciation of the Old British, that is the Welsh, the ancient and prehistoric name for the Thames, which is described by Julius Caesar in his writings, and there are various records with very little variation all through history. So this is the authentic, at least from the Bronze Age, Iron Age, up until now, the authentic name for this river. The English didn't change it, apart from the letter H. So today it's spelt with a letter H. And I did a bit of research on the why did we get the H in there? Because that would suggest the Old English pronounced it as Tamyse, but that H was put in at some point during the Middle Ages. It is in the mistaken belief that this name is related to a Greek word for a river. So it is a miscategorization at some point. A piece of bad scholarship has ended up putting the H into Thames. But as you can hear from my voice, we don't pronounce the H. So it shouldn't be a problem. That is, if we can retain through the next couple of hundred years the correct pronunciation of it. We don't want any sort of hyper-correction. But anyway, yes, this is the Thames. Then it tells us to go to the Æwelme ditch, which is it's probably a leat, which is a river channel that comes off the river. It's a water channel that goes down to the mill, the Æwelme, which is the old mill. And there is a modern old mill, which I showed you in the last video, but the leat, I don't believe, actually goes to that. I think the old mill is Mill Farm, Upper Mill Farm today, because there is a channel and the modern Thames, they meet up at the Upper Mill Farm. I suspect the straightened route of today's Thames, and the fact that the other channel is very wibbly wobbly, it might be that this part of today's Thames might actually be the Leat, might actually be just a channel to feed a mill, and that the wibbly wobbly part was the original Thames. It could be, it might not be, it might just be natural meandering across the valley. And then the charter tells us to go to Le Eslacca Bridge, which means the East Slow-Moving Stream Bridge. And I walked across this without thinking about it on the last video. I should have taken a shot of it. But that East Lacca has become today's modern lake. But in Old English times, it wasn't a lake. Lacca was a slow-moving stream. And there is a slow-moving stream marked on the map. And it is wet there. I remember it being, the ditches being extremely wet. And so the name has developed in its meaning, but it's still an English word that is related in its physical properties to the word that we use today, lake, which means that in Old English times that small stream was originally called East Lacca, so we could call it East Lake today. Likewise, it talks about being in the Little More, which is, Little is obviously little, and More means a wet space, a wet space, and normally that is a marsh, but there is marked on the map a small well or pond or something, and we have today in modern English mere meaning a lake, a pond, a wet area. I suspect that pond is little more. Another method to beat melancholy in the winter is to wear a good pair of wellies. Well, wear a poor pair of wellies like this and you'll still be absolutely fine. That was nearly impassable. It was very close to the top of my boots, but I'm glad I'm wearing a £12 pair of wellies from Wilkinson's.